I'm Garland Weeks from Lubbock, and I'd like to introduce you to a new creation of mine called Vision of the Future that will be presented at the Kemp Public Arts Center in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is my hometown. When I got the project, the committee wanted a young family from the 1920s that would have settled in north central Texas and would have been engaged in farming, ranching, oil, and gas. So through the evolution of several different maquettes, with some maquettes with children, some maquettes with chickens, we ended up with this family. She is pregnant. And it's a married couple. I've made sure that there are wedding bands on the proper hands so that everybody knows. But in my mind, he represents the ranching industry. He's dressed as a rancher. He doesn't have spurs on. He doesn't have leggings on. But it's like he has ridden to the house at noon or at the end of the day, and he's brought his wife a bouquet of wild flowers. She is in the garden with a hoe. And I can turn this thing around, and there's a big stand of wheat. This wheat would represent one of the major industries in north central Texas, which is the production of wheat. And I'm still in the process of getting some of these wheat kernels figured out. And then as you walk on around the piece, then I've got a sputter bit, which everybody in Wichita Falls knows what a sputter bit is. I've got two rotary bits, as well as a horse head off of a pumping unit, pumping jack. So there's all the equipment that I could think of that would illustrate farming, ranching, oil, and gas all in one piece. And like I said, then the young married couple expecting a child represents the family. He's got his hat, he's got his arm wrapped around her. He's taken off his hat in deference to her. And they're looking, he's looking longingly at her, and she's looking at the flowers, and she's got a little tear in her eye. Because I understand that pregnant women get pretty emotional at times. So I was trying to get some emotion into it. I've also tried to introduce elements of nature in that the wind is blowing. Some of her hair, little curlicues in her hair blowing. The bow on her apron is certainly blowing, and all of the wheat is blowing. And speaking of nature, I've also added a Texas horned toad, which gives something for the kids to find. And I'm also going to put in a little dung beetle, which is kind of my icon. In a nutshell, that's the project. I'll start the mold on it next week, and we should be unveiling this on or about December 1 of this year. I sculpted these people at 1 1/4. So that makes him stand 7'6" from the bottom of his boot. He would be a 7'6" man. She is 7 feet tall from the bottom of her shoes. And then there's about 10 inches of sculpted dirt below here. So the whole thing is going to be right at 9 feet, a little over 9 feet tall, about 36 by 48. About 48 by 50, I think, would be the overall dimensions, and basically 100 inches tall. Lots of mass. There's only 4 negative spaces. I've got a negative space here. I've got a negative space between his legs. There's a negative space in the horse head itself where this cable is. And I've got one negative space here behind some of the wheat that's bending over, touching this rotary bit. I'm not a big proponent of excess negative space in sculpture. But I've tried to get them dressed in period clothing, you know, like the khaki pants and the dungaree shirt, buttoned at the top, because back then working men outside, regardless of their occupation, always buttoned their shirt collar to keep the sun off of them in the sand and the dust. And then she's got the obligatory apron on. She is wearing shoes that I Googled up Sears Roebuck catalog from 1920s, and then ended up searching for women's work shoes, so I know they're right for the period. The sputter bit, of course, is well documented in the history of north central Texas. The rotary drill bits came into use in the 20s, so everything here is period effective. Now in his boots, I've got them really roughed up because this guy's not been to a shoe shine parlor in his lifetime. So I've got these shoes, his boots and her shoes are really roughed up with dirt to simulate what dirt is. I've added a little patch here, which historically boots would wear out right in here sometimes. Well, then the cowboy just patch them. And that's what he's done. There's a piece of leather that's patched on there. His breeches were in his boots, which were typical of that era. And he's standing astraddle of this rotary drill bit back here. Here's his right boot is here, standing behind her, and is standing behind that rotary bit. Right in here, I've got the toe of his boot making an appearance back here between her left heel and the beginning of the wheat crop growing in here. That just kind of gives a definition to his leg here, and it ends here. Like I said, these look real big, but you've got to remember these are 25% larger than life. And in her shoes, here again, I've got them roughed up to make sure that people know that she is working in the dirt. And here is the eye hoe that she's using. There's lots of dirt piled up here like she's been hoeing in the garden. And then here are all the individual wheat heads that I'm in the process of refining. On these wheat heads, I'm having to put in one kernel at a time and build the entire wheat head. When I get that built, and you can see a lot of them here, and rather than try to finish this one on camera, then I would take a tool and begin to sculpt those surfaces together and try to refine each of these heads into a single unit, so that you're seeing the representation of the individual kernels, but I don't want you looking at every little bitty kernel. I just want you looking at the head of wheat, and you see enough wheat there that you're not going to concentrate on any one of them. When you see this, it's my hope as a sculptor that this is believable as a field of wheat. You can probably see the two hooks in the tops of, or one hook in the top of each of their heads. That facilitates me in removing that head next week so that I can make the mold on the heads at ground level, and that'll just ease up the whole mold making process. The flowers are, it's just a wild flower. I didn't try to identify which wild flower it might be, but you've got to use your imagination a little bit. Well, the hat is my dad's work hat. And like I said, now this is 1 1/4, so you can see how much bigger this is, but I modeled that right off my dad's hat, which I have. And like I said, he's wearing a wedding band and she's wearing a wedding band. And I felt like the way that they're holding each other, it's just kind of, they really love each other. They like each other. And he's looking forward to coming home, and she was looking forward to him coming home. And then I've got a little handkerchief in his pocket, and you can see the little tip of it sticking up there. I didn't put a lot of detail on these extra accoutrements that I just thought detracted. I tried to keep this thing as simple and clean as possible. with the exception of adding all the individual wheat. And of course, the equipment has to necessarily be exact. But other than that, I tried to keep their lines clean and simple with the proper drapery. This is my creation that I hope represents the history of North Central Texas and the vision that those people that were first coming into that country, the vision that they had for what the future could hold for them. As long as they worked hard and loved each other, they could make it. I trust the Kemp and the citizens of Wichita Falls and North Central Texas will look at my creation and think that it represents their family in some way.